Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Angel Vivaldi, and with me today is the infamous Mr. Andrew Baena. How are you, man?
I am good. I am very sad that this is all coming to a close, but also excited to sleep in my own bed, see my girl again. So mixed feelings, you know.
Amen. But you've been on tour before, so like it's like a mini tour, but not nearly as stressful.
Well, we stopped at a pilot yesterday, so that was the icing on top of almost like being on tour.
Yeah, PTSD, man. If you're showering at a Love's.
Yeah. I did have the gas station pizza, so we're almost
there
there.
you go.
Yeah.
Just like sweet sadness.
Exactly. Yeah, I thought it was going to happen next month, but we're getting an early start apparently.
There you go. You're pre-gaming.
Yeah, exactly.
You're pre-gaming. So like for those who don't know or aren't familiar with what you do, which is very unlikely, give us your process. Like, you know, because obviously musicians these days, I like to start this off with just showcasing everything that you do from like the beginning of a concept or an idea or a song up until the end. Like how many hats do you wear?
Ooh, yeah, that's a big question. I mean, like the first step is always obviously coming up with an idea. Those ideas can be anywhere from things I thought of in 5 seconds to things I've wanted to do for a long time. And then how am I actually going to do this? And it's like, what do I need to record? So it's always audio first, assuming it needs that. It'll be guitar first and foremost because that's the thing I'm primarily doing. So I usually, record guitar scratch tracks is what I like to call them, like rough demos where I'm like, this is more or less the riff, record that, and then write drums to it, delete the scratch track, record it actually good.
But here's the thing. I fell into this trope so many times where when you're doing pre-production, you're just writing and you don't have the pressure of like, this is like a big boy track. That's what
it doesn't have to be perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
There's always a magic in that pre-production track that you can it's impossible to replicate that performance. I say over the past like 5 years, like I set myself up for success to begin with. So like I capture everything.
DIs from the beginning.
Like I don't really typically do DIs,
Okay.
but like I make sure that my tone and my levels and everything is like I'm putting in as much effort as I can to just capture from the beginning. Because the other thing too is like we're also creating double the work for ourselves later on,
For sure.
But yeah, so continue.
Oh yeah, it's all good. That's interesting that you bring that up because I record everything DI always because I'm primarily use plugins, or if I want to use a real amp, I'll just reamp it. So I don't have that problem as much because if I do retrack and then realize like, oh, that thing I did in the demo is way better, then I'll just comp the two. Like I'll be like,
smart.
Most of the riff is good, or if I'm writing with my band, even it's like sometimes like what ends up happening. This is kind of off topic, but if it's for the band, then it's usually like 3 of us writing, and sometimes like one of the 3 of us did like whatever this scratchy sound that I'm like, I don't know how you did that.
Right.
I can play the rest of the riff, but that sounds way better when you in particular do that. So the riff will be the recorded version of what I did, but this effect of you, and you're just like, just drop it in there.
For sure, yeah.
That's the way that I do it. But yeah, so that's the first part of the process, regardless of if it's like a meme, content, my band, whatever.
So it's more like just conceptualizing and just like structuring either the core nucleus of the idea, or just the actual riff or the song. So that's the musical flexing. You're flexing that musical muscle, right?
Yeah.
And then once you do that, you're tracking it, which is you're flexing a production muscle, right?
Yeah.
And then when it gets to video, like what roles are you playing there?
Yeah, so for video, I do everything myself most of the time now. I've gotten to the point where luckily I can afford to hire an editor every once in a while, depending on the scale of the video. Like if I have a pretty like heavy hitting sponsor, sometimes I can afford to be like, yeah, I'll give this to someone else to give it a little bit more pizzazz, I guess you would say.
But do you find that since you're so conditioned to like doing your own videos, that is sometimes more work when you get to edit back to just give them notes sometimes?
Fortunately for me, I don't feel that way because the person who edits my videos, I've known them for a very long time. They're actually the person who made a lot of music videos for Carcosa and also my old band. So I've known them forever. Like they've seen my videos, they know what I want, they know how I edit, and they try to edit like me, which is great. Sometimes I'm like, I don't want you to edit like me. I want you to look better, right?
For sure. Right.
But yeah, fortunately for me, I don't have that worry. I've talked to a bunch of other YouTuber friends who do have that problem though, where they're like, I want you to do the work, but also I know what I want to see. And it's like you're saying, it almost ends up being more work than just doing it yourself anyways, because it's like, well, we're not necessarily the best at explaining what we want. Like there's that joke going around right now, like about AI replacing artists. And then the artist response is like, well, we're safe because we can trust that the artist has no idea how to explain what they want to the AI anyway.
Right.
And I've been really lucky. Shout out to Ravencraft Creative / Connor Gilkinson, by the way. But yeah, so then it's just kind of, I keep things pretty simple, like very efficient, because I'm trying to release at least one video a week on average. So, you know, I'm trying to record all the riffs, re-record the riffs over and over and over until they're good enough or perfect. Write the drums, do all the things, and then film the video. So when I get to the video, I kind of have like just a template, I would say. Like it's like, okay, A cam is here, B cam is here, record it twice, or film it twice rather, and then move B cam over here, film that twice, and then just comp that all together. And then it's like, do I need any B-roll? Yes or no? If yes, okay, cool. Is it a, I don't know, guitar demo? Okay, let's get some shots of the guitar. If I make a mistake while I'm playing, put those over top of my mistakes so nobody knows. If there's an angle where I'm looking at my screen because I'm looking at a tab, you know, don't use that angle, so on and so forth. So I have it all like pretty efficient, I guess is all I'm really after pretty much all the time. So any way that I can make it more efficient, I'm happy. Same with even mixing, like at the end of recording everything, I'm like, I pretty much record everything to a template immediately.
So you have your workflow kind of like...
Yeah. And then like, if there's something that's jumping out at me as being weird or wrong, I'll fix that particular thing. But on average, like I kind of more or less use the same template for videos and music, where I'm like, I know how I like to sound. This is how I like to sound. And then like, sometimes it'll be like, oh, this particular video needed like a clean tone that I don't normally use. So like, how do I fit that in? For the most part, it's like more or less the same, with slight variations, because I do a lot of gear demos. So then it's like, okay, well, it's this amp, so the tone has to be from that, but like the drums will stay the same or the bass will stay the same. Oh, it's a bass demo. Okay, guitars will be this, but then the bass have to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of just doing it as needed.
But
sorry, I'm kind of jumping back and forth between video and production.
Well, it's a massive question though.
Yeah,
because that's the whole point of the question. Is like, you know, people don't really realize how many hats we truly wear, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So like, there's an interesting sort of duality with what you just said there in terms of, you know, you're talking about releasing a video once a week. So you have this workflow that's effective, you know, and practical, and it's just like, it's easy to wield. But then obviously when you're an artist and you're writing for your band, you know, and working with other people, you know, I feel like the content creators that do write original music, the content is like, fine, we could sacrifice production values to just get the gist of what's going on because it's entertainment, you know, whereas the art side of it is a little bit, that word has a serious tonality. It's like, it's fucking art. So like, you're really going to take your time. So do you find that sometimes it's hard to kind of balance it? Like you're just like, oh, let's just get this album out. You're like, it's fine, you know, like it's good enough. It's better than the content that I'm doing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because you're in that weird spot of doing both.
I definitely know what you're saying. That's something I used to battle with internally a lot. And I think over time I've had an easier time kind of figuring out like how I deal with that. Because I think back in the day, I was very resistant to doing certain types of content because I almost like, it sounds stupid now, but it almost felt like it was like beneath me or something. Cause I'm like, oh, that's not my thing, or that's not my art or whatever. But then as things have gone on, I've kind of realized like, well, I guess that's not really how I see this. Cause at this point I feel more like my YouTube channel and content in general, like Instagram, anything, is more of like, this is my business and my band is my art.
There you go.
So I've kind of, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but I've kind of compartmentalized it so that I'm like, this is my business, and sometimes if I need a video a week or there's a deadline, this video has to be done by this day, like that's fine. I understand that maybe it's not the greatest mix of all time, but I've realized that it doesn't really matter to some extent, because it's like, well, as long as I'm showcasing the product, if it's a gear demo, for example, it's fine. Like it doesn't have to be the best mix of all time. Actually, it's probably better that it's not, because the average person... honest. And the average person that buys this probably won't know how to do even a quarter of what I do. Not to sound cocky, but you know.
No, but I totally understand it, because you have like the consumer perspective of just like being able to just enjoy music, right? Because as many people play guitar, a fraction of them get to, you know, have the privilege and the honor of like making any sort of money.
Exactly.
Let alone the fraction that actually is wildly successful. So early on, I felt the same fucking way, man. And I think it was coming from a place of ignorance, you know, because there was this sort of like, there's always a period where like everyone's finding their footing, right? And I think that if you're honest with things that you're willing to do and you have the capacity to do, right? So like in 2014, I did Away with Words Part 1, and then there was like a little bit of a gap, and I just did like singles, like, you know, Crystal Planet, stuff like that here and there. And it was sort of around the time where a lot of the YouTubers were like really coming up. And me, dude, like I hang out with everyone. Like I'm not in a clique. I'm not in the guitar instrumental clique. I'm not in like the Bad Wolves clique or like, Five Finger Death Punch, despite knowing, and YouTubers clique. Like I hang out with everyone at NAMM, man. So like, and I love it because everyone's just vibes differently. To be quite honest, like I love hanging out with the YouTubers and the content creators more because no one takes himself as seriously. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Everyone's just genuinely like grateful to be here because we all know we're pieces of shit. You know? It's like, because the thing is, it's like, I think it's more a matter of like, if you attach yourself to how you think the audience perceives you, which is a fucking loaded sentence, but you get what I'm saying?
It's like a weird thing to even think about in the first place, but it's like, but that's also now your job. And it's like, that's not really what I signed up for. I mean, it is, but like, that's not the way I thought it was going to be when I started all this or whatever.
Did you just want to like, just be in a band and tour and record? Like, was that the original intention getting into music?
It's interesting because I don't really think I started any of this with the intention of it going anywhere.
I don't think any of us do, huh?
Now they do, though. If you talk to like kids right now, like if you ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? They will say a YouTuber, which is 100%. Crazy to hear for me. But again, like I started doing this, like not to date myself, but I started doing this like when you couldn't make money on YouTube. And I just did it because I liked making videos and I liked recording. And it was my way of literally learning how to do that. And I was like, well, I can just post this and like, who cares? Like people like it or they don't, that's fine. Obviously, once people started liking it, I was like, fuck yeah. And then that's what, sent me along this path when I realized like, oh, this is actually a thing and I can have an audience and I can maybe make money, blah, blah, blah. But like, I never even thought about that until I had like my first viral video.
Right.
And then same with the band. Like I originally had no intentions of being in a band necessarily. Because the way that I started my first band, Galactic Pegasus, is so funny because pretty much like, again, with YouTube, it was like, this is just me putting stuff out and like, I don't really care if it does well or bad. I mean, I wanted it to do well, but
of course.
But yeah, like I kind of had just like put up like a couple of original songs here or there just because, yeah, sure, why not? I was mostly doing covers. And then like, not to get too deep into the story, but at that time in my life, like I didn't really have that many personal friends, especially not ones who were into metal. And I was kind of tired of just like sitting around doing nothing all the time. So I was like, fuck it. I'll just go to like a local metal show by myself because I don't know anybody that likes this stuff.
Yeah.
So I just went anyways. And the first time I did that, I met people at that show who were like, oh, you're that person I've seen on YouTube. And that had never happened to me before.
Yeah.
So I was like, whoa, like, what the fuck? That's weird. And that kind of is more or less the first thing where I was like, oh, maybe I could like find people that want to play this music with me. And then ironically, I actually started the band because I was offered a show. I did not have a band.
Oh, interesting.
A promoter had also seen my YouTube channel. And at the time I had released this video called like How to Get Signed to Rise Records, which was like a dumb meme, but it did really well at the time. And that was like my first kind of like viral video forever ago. And yeah, she was like, hey, there's this show happening. It'd be really cool if you open. And I didn't even have a band at all. So I was like, well, I'm going to look like a fucking idiot if I'm standing on stage alone playing like Gent or whatever.
And what year was this?
Man, like 2012, 2011, somewhere around there. I don't remember. Quite a while ago. And that was like the reason why I started the band at all, is because I was like, well, I want to do this because I think it would be fun. But like how? And then I was like, I guess I got to find people that want to play this with me. So I kind of just found like some friends who like sort of listen to metal. Maybe not exactly what I was into, but I was like,
close
hey,
enough.
Yeah, I was like, I know this isn't like necessarily the type of thing you want to play, but would you want to play this show? I think it'd be fun, blah, blah, blah. And I managed to convince them, even though we made no money and all that. And then we did the show, and that was like the first time I had done something like that, and it just like got me hooked. Where I was like, damn, like that was
the first time you played live? No,
more or less. Like
really?
I did like a talent show in high school, and like that never went anywhere. Obviously, that was like the first time I played. We did like an A Day to Remember cover.
Okay.
Super sick. But yeah, it was that, and then basically maybe one other show, but again, it was just like friends kind of like fucking around. But that was my first, like, this is a show for strangers that I don't know. Like, it's not like friends and family watching me or high school or whatever. And that's kind of what the first, like, inkling of being like, oh, like, this is pretty cool. This is pretty fun. And, like, it seems like people are interested. So kind of from there, I kind of ended up building the band up. Like, a bunch of the people who played the first show, like, only did that one. I'm like, yeah, that was fun. Cool. Not for me. Bye. Fair enough. No problem. A couple of them kind of stuck around, swapped out here and there. And then from there, it basically became a band. And again, so it's weird because like I didn't really do it on purpose necessarily. It wasn't really something that I thought I wanted. Like obviously, I listened to bands and I liked bands, but I had never even envisioned myself as that person because I don't know. I just never thought about it. I was like, it's just like such a foreign concept to me that I'm like, that could never be me.
Right.
And then it was, and I was like, oh shit, I guess I can do this. And in a way, that's kind of how I felt about YouTube too, where I was like, yeah, I mean, people are doing this and I can try. And then when I got like a couple of videos that went viral, I was like, oh, I can actually do this. So
right.
It was a lot of me just like trying stuff and then like it worked and I was like genuinely surprised that it worked. And then I was like, oh, cool. Well, I guess I'll keep going then. Like this is probably a good sign.
For sure. Absolutely. I think going back to one thing that you said with it, original artists seeing sort of content creation and YouTube as like, cringy or beneath them.
Yeah, especially back then.
And that was literally the era where I felt like it was like oil and water. Like that's what I'm saying. Like the cliques they did, no one hung out with anyone else. Whereas now it's completely different, man.
Way different.
All the original artists, I think what it is sort of either they feel like they maybe hit their ceiling or whatever the case is. I'm sure it's a very nuanced thing based on the individual, but now everyone is sort of flocking to do content creation in like its true form and just like, going on the trends and using the trending sounds and like doing the whole thing. And because they know that it's lucrative if you play your cards right,
Definitely.
and I think that it's quite like the tables have turned. I think you said something in an interview. You said something along the lines of, how the competition sort of softened a little bit with YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Do you think it's because it's sort of like a situation where you're all standing in the same fucking room and no one's saying anything to anyone else, and it becomes almost awkward that you guys haven't collabed at some point? Or do you think it's just a more matter of like everyone sort of just softening and just sort of settling into their own successes on the platform?
I think it's a bit of both. I think it's also just we have come to realize that there's room for everybody, especially as things have gone on. It's actually really funny because I was talking to Drusif in particular about this earlier, and like it seemed way more like back in the day, like because I was doing covers especially. It was like I would see like, I don't know, let's say like Drusif do a cover, and I was like, fuck, I was gonna do that cover too. And I still did it anyways, but I knew that when I posted it now, I'm like, damn, like people are going to compare me to him, blah, blah, blah. Right. And that still happens a little bit, but like, I don't really care as much anymore. Whereas now it's not like that anymore. Because if it's like, oh, this popular song came out, it's not like I have to be first. It's like, I know that 30 people are going to cover this song and they're all my friends. Right. And I want to hear what they did. So it's way different. And then even the same for bands. Like I did a podcast with Chris Garza from Suicide Silence. And like he could talk about this forever because, he comes from not a content creator perspective at all. He comes from a band perspective. And he just did one with Whitechapel, which was so interesting because like back in the day, especially like Whitechapel and Suicide Silence were very like neck and neck for deathcore. And they never toured together. Never. And like he even went as far, I believe, don't put words in my mouth in case I'm wrong, but I think more or less was what he was saying, like he wouldn't even listen to them because they viewed each other as competition. For and now like 10 years later, they're like, why the fuck did we do that? Right. We could have made so much money together if we toured together. Like we have the same fan base, this, like we could have done this. You know what I mean? Well, so it's interesting.
Here's the interesting thing about that. Cause I think, obviously being a touring artist and being in that world is sort of part of it is that in some cases, there's a case to say that you won't make as much money because it's the same fans.
Yeah, I guess
that's the reason why. Like a lot of them is like that bill doesn't quite make sense, But to your point, I think that because I'm a very competitive person, but over the years, I learned how to compete in a healthy way. In the sense of because I do think that like for instance, like me, Animals, Intervals, Polyphia, Plenty, like we were all extremely competitive, especially when we first started off, man. Yeah. Like, fucking hell, man.
I can see that.
We're men and we're fucking playing guitar, like straight up, like, But the thing is, as you get older and you sort of find your lane, and as your career sort of expands, like you have control of how wide you want your lane. You shouldn't be able to like. I think what we were doing was like bumping each other's lane, like doing this,
or like forcing yourself to do something that you're like, do I even like this? Like, why do I care?
100%, and like you, like, going, doing, what you're doing now early. Like I've been doing the guitar instrumental since like 2003. Like no one give a fuck about guitar.
Right.
Dude, like it was like me and like Rob Balducci and Rusty Cooley and Francesco Ferrara,
and all that.
Dude, 7string.org, gemfest.com. We were doing Gemfest every year, and like we used to have that charity event, Gemfest. It was like fucking 3 people in that hotel watching us play the backing tracks. No one gave a shit, dude.
Right.
But the thing is, I think with competition, what it does is we're pushing each other. We don't understand that we're actually helping each other. Competition breeds a polyphia.
Definitely.
Because you're pushing, and I think that once you get to the place where you have your lane, it's more a matter of friendly competition because it's like, all right, I'm sure you can agree, the internet definitely leveled the playing field out to a degree. But the other facet of that is that even still, there's no such thing as a level playing field because, like Tosin has genetic advantages and predispositions that I just don't, and I have experiences and advantages over, X, Y, and Z. And there's no true level playing field. Like, dude, like someone could be brought up with like super rich parents like that gave them the lessons and nurtured them. Like, bro, I came from fucking nothing, dude. I came from like drug addicts who did not want me to play a guitar, so when I sort of realized that after a couple ego deaths and like therapy, like I'm talking like fucking like sober, no mushroom ego deaths. And that's like arguably fucking worse, it's just like, because you have to just be like radically honest with yourself, and that's where I really genuinely was like, I'm at fucking peace now. I can relax. I don't feel like, cause I don't know if you feel this. I definitely feel it at NAMM where there's this sort of like your gut just tells you something about whoever it is, and like, I'm like, oh, it's just in my head, dude. Like it's fine, it's like, but then you meet them and you're like, oh shit, maybe, maybe it wasn't that.
Yeah. But it's interesting too. Cause like also, I mean, part of like growing up is also realizing that sometimes what your brain thinks and what your emotions do or emotionally think is completely different.
100%.
And one or the other could be completely wrong. And you could be cognizant enough that you're aware that your emotion is incorrect.
How many levels you want to go up, right?
And that probably sounded like a fucking insane sentence. But I feel like you know what I mean, right?
100%.
But then the problem is, or not the problem, but like the shitty thing about that is like sometimes you're self-aware enough to know that your emotion doesn't make sense, but not in control enough to know how to stop it.
Beautifully said.
And that is a thing that I deal with a lot. Like, I don't want to sit here and say like, yeah, there's no competition more, it's all good. Like, do not get me wrong. I still feel that way. I am also just aware that it doesn't make sense that I feel that way. So instead of, or at least I try to, instead of letting that, like, I don't know, ruin my day or be like, oh man, like, I really wanted to do this video, but now I don't want to anymore because this person's was so good that I'm just like so demotivated. I don't even want to try.
Right.
Instead of letting myself get to that point, which I used to, probably I would have let that happen. Now it's like, well, I mean, like now it's more like I'm curious what I'm going to do. And if it's better or worse, which doesn't exist, of course, like how is it going to be different? Or at least if not that, at least being like, how or what did this person do that I guess like it gave me this emotional response of like, whoa, that's way better or worse or whatever. And like, is there anything I can learn from that? Can I use anything? So like trying to turn it into like a learning experience.
100%.
It's like, it sounds so funny to say, but it's just like very much like trying to like deconstruct, like, why do I actually feel this way? And is there something I can actually do about it?
Right.
And of course, that is way easier said than done. There's still plenty of times where I'll see, it's not even like external competition. Like sometimes it's with myself.
For sure.
Like I'll go back and look at a
More
video.
importantly, it's that.
For sure. But like, you know, it's like sometimes I'll look at a video from, I don't know, 10 years ago and I'll be like, man, like I used to be getting 1 million views on videos. And now I'm like, if I get 10K, I'm like, that's pretty good. Sure. And it's like, I'm okay with that now, but there was like a huge period of time where I was like, oh, is something wrong with me? Am I doing this wrong? Is it this or this? Am I failing? Is this going to work anymore? Like that happens all the time. So I don't want to give anyone the illusion that I'm like, yeah, I'm in complete emotional control. Absolutely not. Right. Yeah. But again, like I'm at least more equipped, I guess, to hopefully deal with those emotions when they come.
Well, there are opportunities. You know what I'm saying? I think that anytime you're having, you know, an opportunity to practice how to deal with disappointment, how to deal with anger, how to deal with, you know, deflated expectations, or or whatever, conflict or whatever it is, it's an opportunity to flex that muscle, and if you're lucky in life, you're not going to have many opportunities to work on your anger, right? But when it arises, man, like just pause for a second, because we all have a knee-jerk reaction to just do X, Y, and Z. 100%. Or like, just like, fuck, like I'm just fucking grateful and blessed that I live a very peaceful life, But at the same time, I think that, I think this is a good contrast because it's very like, it's a solitary life. Like we're by ourselves, you know what I'm saying? And like jamming with you guys and just hanging out. I'm just like, this is, I don't know. It's a different type of feeling alive.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, I mean, the jokey way to say it would be like, this feels like YouTube summer camp, but
I could see that, or like a NAM or something,
I don't know if I compare it to NAM. I mean, I guess like, yeah, kind of. But
if you're like rooming with a bunch of people and you're going out
sure, fair enough. But yeah, because it's also interesting, going back to something you were talking about earlier. One of my favorite parts about this experience has been like seeing what everyone's like weaknesses and strengths are, because like I'm a very like I don't know if self-conscious person is the right term. What's the term?
Self-conscious as shit.
I mean, I'm that I'm that too, but what I'm looking for another term. I can't quite get it right now. Oh man, it's on the tip of my tongue. Like imposter syndrome.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
My initial reaction to being invited to this was extreme nervousness. I was like, me? Like, are you sure, dude? Like, I don't know. And then like, there's been moments throughout this, last week with specific things where I was like busking, for example. I was like, I really don't want to fucking do that. Cause like for me, I'm like, I don't know how to improv. I don't know music theory. I don't know this. So I already know all this stuff in my mind. So I'm like, that to me was like this big, like, oh, like I really don't want to do that. And then like seeing the other people on my team be like, oh, let's play this song. Do you know how to play it? No, but I can figure it out. What key is it in? This. Okay, cool. And they would just do it. And I was like, fuck, like I can't do that. So I was like standing there with the shaker.
Yeah.
And I was like, God damn, this is such like a ego crushing event. It wasn't really, but you know what I mean? In the past, that probably would have been like, fuck.
But it's like a little ego death. It's
for sure.
Very tiny. I think it's just like, that's the definition of being humble.
For sure.
Right?
Exactly. Humbled is a better way to put it. But then there's been other events where I thought I was going to be bad at them, for example, because again, don't have the best self-image. And then when I did it, I was like, oh shit, like a week ago would have been like, that's going to be so hard. I don't know if I can do that. This is going to be bad. Oh my God, what am I going to do? And then when it came down to it, I was like, oh shit, I guess I can do that. I didn't know that. And now moving forward, if this ever happens again, I won't feel nervous because I'm like, yeah, we made a cool song in 5 hours. Up until this week, I've only written songs either by myself or with one other person or with my band. And it's usually someone I've known for a long time, blah, blah, blah. But being forced to be in a room with 4 other people who may or may not know different things than me, I was like, oh my God, what are we doing? And we ended up with actually like a pretty good song. I was like, oh shit, like, okay, like this isn't as scary as I thought it was.
For sure.
And then other things too, like, yeah, the music video was like, oh, cool. Like, I don't know, just noticing like there was things that I was like good at that maybe other teammates weren't, or vice versa. And it was like, again, going back to that, realizing like this isn't really a competition, because like even if I have a bad self-image of myself in this specific regard, there's other regards that I'm like better at, and like it doesn't really matter because we all have different strengths and so on and so forth.
100%.
So like that's been my favorite part of this week, is just realizing like maybe I'm not so bad after
all. Right. Yeah, totally, man.
Yeah.
And I think that it also, because you're in a band and you have it's like your chosen family. We chose them for you, and you may or may not be musically compatible with them, right? But I think it's when you're in a band, it's like, it's no one member is more important than anyone else. It's like the collective, and you're all there for the band as a whole, and when you're doing that, it's like, like I'm in a band now, like we're actually dropping our first single next week, funny enough.
Nice.
And I haven't been in a band since like I was in Vex with Tommy, like in 2012. So it's like, like 12 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously I have like my band that's been with me since like 2007, like same drummer, bassist, and guitarist, but it's different. It's a different dynamic, you know, like they just show up there. I could throw anything at them and they could play it.
Yeah.
And convincingly. Whereas, in my band, it's like, all right, I'm not getting involved at all with your vocals or your, if you need help, I'm here for you, but like you do you. And, Casey Grillo, you're like a fucking drum god. Like you are, please always do you, you know? And just, I think it's like being in a relationship. If you're very discerning with the people that you want to spend your life with, musically or romantically, you're going to be all right, But I think if you're desperate, let's say for instance, you live in a very, if you live in a very rural area, dude, you're fucked. Right. Because like, if you're into like progressive deathcore, like good luck finding a drummer.
Yeah.
Well, you're in Vancouver, right?
I'm not actually. I do the Seattle thing where it's like, I'm from Seattle, but
okay. But how is it like finding people that are musically compatible with you with such niche tastes? Has it been difficult?
Again, I have that unique experience where it wasn't because I already make my own stuff by myself. So I have never figured out a way to say this without sounding like arrogant. I don't mean it that way, but for me, it was always like, I made this and people were like, hey, I heard this thing you made. I like that too. Would you want to maybe jam? So for me, it was like, I would create the thing, and then if people liked it, then I would like see if we work together.
Right.
Which is like, I have no idea how you would start a band without like being able to show somebody like, this is what I like and this is what I did. This is how I want to sound.
Right.
I can't even imagine, like I literally can't imagine how it would be to try to like just like explain like, hey, Angel, nice to meet you. I'm Andrew. I would love to start a progressive deathcore band. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I can't even envision that experience because to me, I'm like, well, I would just figure out a way to make the thing I want, whether even if I'm not good enough to play it, like I'll program it, whatever. It'd be like, this is like at least a loose idea of what I want. Does anybody else like this?
Yeah.
So like I've been in a bit of a privileged position, I guess you could say, where like that's how I've always approached everything.
Right.
Because I'm like, well, I can just at least mostly make the thing I want, but I don't want to do it alone sometimes. If you want to join and this is what you're into, like let's see if we can work together. And then now it's obviously completely changed where like my band is, I would say like my other bandmates probably write way more of the music than I do, and like that's fine. Sometimes I have that little ego trip where I'm like, fuck, like my riffs aren't getting used or whatever, but it's just different. That might have been a tangent to your question, but hopefully
I think we're both going on quite a number of tangents right now.
Like, what were we talking about again?
I don't even fucking remember what planet I'm on, let alone the conversation.
Bands, am I right? Yeah.
Awesome.
Relationships.
Right. Very that. Yeah. Well, I mean, they're one and the same. Awesome. So we'll move on to our next segment. I'll show you a photo of someone.
Okay.
And you can just share some thoughts, opinions, anything that comes to mind. Just spit it out.
Okay.
Cool. Photo number 1.
All right. Oh, it makes me sad.
Yeah.
I miss him. Never met him in person, unfortunately. You picked a good one. You probably know this already, but yeah. Main reason I play 8-string guitars, the whole reason my like Neon Green especially thing, all after the burial, one of my favorite bands. Rest in peace, Justin Lowe.
Yeah, man. I think I met Trevor briefly once. But never got to meet Justin.
Yeah.
And just an immense talent, man. I mean, like pioneer, dude. Like he was like
for real, a pioneer.
For sure.
It's ironic because the first 8-string band I ever heard was actually after the burial, not Meshuggah. I know Meshuggah was the first one, but I didn't know that. And I'm gonna go off on a tangent here, but the reason why I heard of them was ultimateguitar.com.
For sure.
It was like the end of the year type of thing where it was like top 10 albums of 2008 or whatever, forever ago. And Rare Form was like in there. And I was like, I've never heard of this band. And then of course they linked, a YouTube video of like Berserker or something.
Right.
And I listened to Berserker and I was like, what the fuck? Like I've never heard anything like this. I didn't know guitars could be that low. See the neon green guitars. I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And it just like totally changed my life. So,
yeah, man. Yeah. R.I.P. Justin, man.
Yes.
What about this fellow? What do you think about him?
Mr. Chogdulo. That's a good picture of him too.
Yeah.
Oh,
I care.
That's my boy right there. I would not be like nearly where I'm at today without him. Like I like to refer to him as annoyingly talented. He hates when I say that. But yeah, he's such a good guy. I love him. I hope he sees this. I'm not going to tell him I said this. I'm
Yeah.
just going to be like, hey, you should watch my interview and like see if he
We'll cut
actually
the
watches
clip
it. Yeah.
and just tag him in it.
Yeah, he's like the most talented person one of the most talented people I know, if not the most talented person I know. Like I feel like he can just pick up anything and figure it out. I don't know, so dedicated to his craft, good at everything, a really good person, and I am very happy I can call him one of my best friends.
Fuck yeah, man. You sound very lucky. About this guy over here.
Mr. Periphery. He said gent is not a genre. I don't know about that.
Debate?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I know that they can say that because they kind of pioneered the word.
Yeah.
So it's like, I guess that's your word. You can take it back or try to. But I also think he's fucking with everybody.
Oh, he totally is.
Sure.
He is.
I think that they probably do think gent is a genre, but they're just like, we can never say that again. But yeah, another pioneer of literally a genre. Whether you think it's a genre or not, I don't care. But
a movement. I mean, honestly, it's sort of, it seemed like it just spread into all sorts of different aspects, you know?
Well, yeah, like literally pioneered that genre, and like now it's like deathcore has gent, metalcore has gent, like all this stuff,
and even like the pop versions of like, you know, like Spirit Box, or you know, it's all low tune polyrhythms, and I mean, it could be in halftime, it could groove at like 130, 140, but it still has the aspect of that progressive element.
Yeah.
I always say genres tend to change. Well, it used to be like every 10 years, you know, like in fucking 60s, you had that era, 70s, you had the funk and the disco, 80s, you had hair metal, 90s, grunge, 2000s, you had, new metal, 2010s, you definitely had metalcore. But when the 2010s, I feel like came in, it's sort of when everything floored it because the internet started really popping off. So then it's sort of like, it's like a tree that's growing exponentially, you know? So like, even like Polyphia comes from that world of, you know, the roots of gent, but then they take, it's like they cross hybrid with like trap music and like neo soul. And
I don't know what they're doing, but I love it.
Dude, it's incredible, man. Honestly, thank God for them. Glad
literally making guitar music popular again.
Bro, for real. Like, I'm so grateful for them. But that's the thing, like now it's like changing every 5 years. Yeah. And like every almost like maybe 2.5 years going forward. I don't know. It's like our brains can't really comprehend what exponential growth is, you know? But like,
we were not made to have this much information.
Dude, it's wild, man. But it's a fucking best time to be a musician, in my opinion, you know?
And even outside of Periphery, just like, I genuinely think like he paved the way for, I know he wasn't a YouTuber, but I would argue that I think he pioneered, or at least like helped pave the way of like what we literally do now. Like again, like he was one of the first people that I saw where it's like, I heard like a Periphery demo or whatever. Again, probably 7string.org or something.
SoundClick.
Yeah. Fuck.
SoundClick.com.
Yeah. Man. I am Bulb. Yeah.
I am Bulb. Yeah.
I am Bulb. Yeah. And then finding out like, oh, this is like one guy in his bedroom. Like, I didn't know that was possible. Bro.
The snare. Like, I was just like, how the hell is he getting that snare that sounded like that? You know?
And like, I don't know, just one of those things where I was like, oh shit, like one person can do all this. I didn't even know that was possible. And even if that inspired like me and other people to be like, oh, well, if he can do that, how can I do it? Or can I do it even? And yeah, I know he didn't do it in the context of like a content creator or a YouTuber, but I still think it like for sure. Yeah.
Again, it's like a matter of like the template, you know, of like, set up your workflow, get your presets, and get your MIDI sequencing. Like, I didn't know what the fuck MIDI sequencing was. I didn't know what. All I know is that that whoever drummed on that was really sick. You know, and it sounded him. Fucking. And that's the thing, right? You know. All right, next up, these gentlemen.
Yeah, I love Meshuggah. I think I like Meshuggah a little bit less than people probably think I do. I do love them, but I don't know all their deep cuts. But in my opinion, the best live band I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
If you've never seen Meshuggah live, go. Even if you're like, oh, I like Bleed in one of their songs, just go. Like, they play songs live that I'm like, I've never even heard this before. I don't give a shit. It's so good. I don't know how humans are capable of writing this music in the first place, and then watching them do it live perfectly with like a light show that is like, they're crazy, literally crazy. That's what their name means,
there
right?
You go.
Yeah,
they're living up to the brand.
Yeah, and again, After the Burial was my first 8-string love, but obviously they wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for them. So also pioneers.
I get it, man. Like for me, like I understand the appeal totally, and I I respect someone sticking to their convictions because they've been around they've been
Yeah.
doing what they do for so fucking long.
And so rare for a band to blow up, what, like 10 years after? Not even, because Bleed came out in like 2006 or
Right,
something.
yeah.
And that song, I feel like, only blew up in like 2010, which is very weird. That never happens.
For sure, you know, but like when I listen to it, like I just hear an assembly line, bro. Like it's just like,
It taps into that like lizard brain.
It's like it makes people go feral, you know. It's just like this. But I understand the appeal of it, man. It's very powerful music, you know. But it's like for me, it's just like atonal.
See, it's interesting though, because to me, like what's interesting to me is the rhythmic stuff. Like their solo stuff, I'm like, I don't know what's happening, and like I have no idea. But like what I find interesting is their rhythmic stuff. Like that's what I love. I also hate it though, because I've done so many videos on Meshuggah, and it's such an interesting experience because I go from being like, this is gonna be awesome, to being like, why the fuck did I choose to do this? Because this is impossible. To then finishing it and being like, okay, this video turned out sick, but I never want to do this again. And then if I try and play it like 2 days later, it's like it's gone.
Gone.
Like it's like, how am I supposed to memorize a 36 bar pattern that never repeats? Like, no, it's not gonna happen.
All right. What about this guy?
Nick.
What do you think of Mr. Nick?
Oh man, again, love Nick. I feel like he also played like a huge part in the growth of my channel. Genuinely, like, such a fucking nice guy. He always goes out of his way to help me when he does not have to. Like, anytime my band puts out a new song, it's always on his Twitch stream, even though we're like way smaller than most of the bands he has on there now. He's just like a bro. I love him. It's been great spending 5 days with him. I'm really sad I'm not going to see him. I'm going to see him again in September, so that's good. Okay, good. That's the nice thing about having a tour coming up and meeting all these people. I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm going to see you and you and you. I hope, if you come to my show. But yeah, I love Nick. He's great, and it's been really fun hanging out with him. And he's genuinely a very nice person, and he, much like Jared, does a lot for the metal community as a whole.
100%.
I think, I don't remember who said this. I don't want to say it as if it's my words. I did not invent this term, but I think it's true. I think that like reaction videos are the new radio. And he puts on some like very underground bands on his Twitch streams that he does not have to do. And he just does it because like, this is sick and I think people should listen to it. And that's super cool.
Yeah, he's an incredibly genuine person.
Yeah.
You know, there's no facade. There's no sort of... And also, I don't get the vibe that there's an ulterior motive. Like, he just loves the culture. Like, that's the word. Mm-hmm. When you use that word culture, it goes deeper than community for me, you know? So, like, I listen to a lot of Jersey club, you know, and Baltimore club music, which is like... It's like the heavy metal of ratchet dance music, you know. If you know what I'm saying, it's like it's heavy shit.
Sure.
And they always, and the hashtag that a lot of the dancers and the choreographers always use is hashtag for the culture.
Okay, like, I've seen that used before. I never knew what it meant.
Yeah, well, that's part of it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, you know, you're doing actions to support the culture of your community and of your people, right? So when you talk about, you know, the culture of people who love metal and niches and deathcore, stuff like that, like there's a certain energy that attracts certain temperaments, right? Mm-hmm. So people who listen to like progressive music or more complex virtuosic music or whatever, if it's intricate or technical, it's going to attract a certain type of person, you know? So like for me, like my fans, I'm very close with my fans. Like I'm always been very curious. Like whenever, even in MySpace days, whenever I get a comment, I go to their page and I just see what's up, you know, because it's almost like audience research. I want to see like what flags they have in their bedroom, what band t-shirts, you know, like who else, because it sort of like gives you a profile of your audience, you know, and what their interests are. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just really insightful. But when you do that, you have to be aware of the answer you get because you don't have any control over that to some degree.
Not at all. And sometimes you may not like what you see.
And that's the thing, you know, I've worked with artists. I do like artist coaching, and a lot of them are just like, how do I get out of this? Well, I'm like, listen, be grateful that you have them, you know, but a lot of times it's like, you know, maybe they go hard into trolling or they're very opinionated. But with our stuff, man, like whether it's myself or like bands that I'm friends with, like everyone's, for the most part, in comparison, pretty fucking respectful. You know, when you talk about like guys like Nick, especially on Twitch. Are you on Twitch? Do you stream at all?
I kind of do. Yeah. I did for the last 3 months, and it was hard. I'm not like the biggest fan of live streaming.
Okay.
But I've tried it.
Yeah. I did it every day for 6 months.
Ooh, every day?
Every day. At least 3 hours. Holidays was like 8, 9.
That
Dude, no, man. It was, the thing is, it's fun hanging out with them, man. Like genuinely, like I genuinely love my fucking fans. They're so cool. They're so much fun. They're smart, inquisitive, you know. And yeah, if it wasn't for them, there's no fucking way, dude. There's no fucking way in hell that I'd be like streaming like that. But it was fun, man. And but that's the thing is, like, you know, I really got a taste of, you know, your world, you know, and that fucking grind. I mean, it's a lot of work, man. It's a lot of mental work because there's always this sort of like, you know, I know what my strengths are. I'm honest with myself. Like that there's I'm not living within a daily delusion of what I'm able to do and not able to do. But you know, at the very least, I always try to like set myself up for success. You know, so for the Twitch stream, I was like, I'm gonna hype myself up. You know, I'm gonna just fucking redecorated everything, paint everything, got all my equipment, and you know, and it was fucking like I just fucking nerve wracking because I don't have time to polish my shit. Yeah. And like that's my thing, man. Like
that's what I didn't like about doing it. Like I did like the community aspect of it because it was really cool seeing like, oh, like this is the same, you know, same 3-5 people, however many, right. seem to come back almost all the time. Like that's really cool. You get to kind of talk.
3 hours, you see.
Oh, I came to your show in Toronto. Like, what's up? Are you coming again? Well, it's cool that you have those genuine conversations, but it's just different. Like I'm so used to making videos where it's like, oh, if I make this video, I'm doing my whole process like we explained earlier. Right. Whereas on Twitch, it's like, well, now you're seeing my process and you're seeing like I fuck up all the time, and like that's fine. And I know people like to see that because like they like to know that we're humans too, and it's not like we're just like, yeah, fucking woo.
For sure,
like,
for
obviously
sure.
not.
Yeah.
But it's also stressful in its own right where I'm like, I don't even know if this is going to turn out good. Because I'm just like, this is me trying it for the first time.
Yeah. Well, it's like, working smarter, not harder, because like, you know, what happens, I mean, there's definitely a level of unpredictability, you know? So it's sort of like, if you're going to do the work anyway, why not have another passive means of income doing it, you know?
That's what I was trying to do, yeah.
But like, you know, but if you care about what you do, man, it becomes so much more than that. Like I was like caring about like what I was going to do on stream. Like it was like going on tour for me. When I'm on tour, I cannot write. Most people can't write. Like you're on tour mode. So when I did Twitch, like you know, for 6 months, like I stopped working on Away with Words Part 2. So like it was, you know, I took a hit, you know, but luckily, because the thing is, I knew that it was going to be like a super expensive in order for me to try to sell it to people because it's so fucking different. Right. And I knew it wasn't going to do nearly as well as what I've done before. So I was like, at least I can, you know, I explained it to Anthony beforehand or someone else. I've done so many of these, I don't remember. But it's like your musical child, you know, and you sort of want to set up your musical child to be, your kid to be as successful as possible. So you get them the best tutor, you get them, you know, the best support system. So like for me, it was just sort of like, you know, I'm going to get the best musicians, you know, and I'm going to get the best production I can. And, you know, the people that I really wanted to work with on a video level, like all the crazy ideas that I had, I was like, I don't give a fuck how much it costs, man. Like I'm going to do it. And I think to a degree, I definitely fucked up in that respect. I mean, it was a learning curve for me because, you know, I'm like pushing 40, dude. I can't be doing shit like that. You know, like I have like a future to think about, you know, and stuff like that. But I think that ultimately a part of thinking about your future is thinking about the now and how much you want to invest in the now so that you could look back at your shit. And the whole thing is like outdoing yourself and cringing less at your past self every year, right? Sure. You know, like that's the idea.
Yeah, not wanting to unlist old videos
for
anymore.
Sure, 100%, man. Like I definitely have 2 unlisted videos because one actually leaned quite YouTuber. Like I did something about like talking about shred music or something like that. It was really funny. It had a lot of views, but I was just like, I'm not sure if I want to like be perceived like that, you know? And then I look back and I was like, oh no, you're so cute. You know, I was like, but sit down, just don't talk, you know?
Definitely.
That guy. What do you think of Dave Mustaine?
Ooh, saved the best for last.
Oh God.
I don't know anything about him personally, so it's nothing personal. I cannot get into Megadeth at all. Yeah. Not my thing.
I don't know why. I had a feeling. Yeah. I had a fucking feeling, man.
So I actually did a video a while back. Like I used to do this series, like what if X band tunes down? Right. And I did one on Megadeth. Okay. And it was, first of all, the first time I had learned any of their songs because I don't really like them. Right. But I actually managed to find a clip of him being like, I don't remember the exact quote, but it's something to the effect of like, if you can't write a riff in E standard, then it's not heavy or something like that, which is like the antithesis of everything I do. So I'm like, this is fucking perfect.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, so I put that at the beginning of the video and then played all of the Megadeth songs in B standard instead. Anyways,
that's fucking hilarious.
yeah, not my thing personally. I
Yeah.
get the appeal, especially for guitarists. Like I'm like, yeah, he shreds. He
Fucking
kills.
Marty.
Well, both of
Fucking
them.
Marty.
Yeah.
It is Marty.
Fair
dude.
enough. For me, it's the vocals. I cannot get past the vocals.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just and again, I don't know him personally, but I feel like more often than not when I see anything talked about him online, it's usually like, oh, Dave is being kind of a dick again, and he said blah blah blah, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Which sort of goes into the whole thing of like, you know, the person that you are really affects how people enjoy your music, you know,
Yeah.
to some degree.
So it's like if I already kind of didn't like them, and then I find out he's kind of like maybe not the greatest guy, I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I really don't like them.
Yeah.
I could be completely wrong. Maybe he's a lovely guy. I don't know, but
Right. But just from a musical
yeah,
standpoint.
purely musical. From a purely musical standpoint,
Yeah.
it's just not my thing personally.
Yeah, I totally get it.
But they're one of the biggest bands in the world, so who fucking cares what I think?
Dude, he's winning, right?
Yeah.
He's winning. So just fucking let him win.
Yeah.
But dude, I just want to thank you for this wonderful conversation. It's
Yeah.
really enlightening getting to know you. And
You as well.
you know,
Thanks for having me.
my pleasure. Take care, guys.